Hey, Richard Beach here from Sonic State Amped, that's Sonic State's guitar channel, and I'm here with Doug Doppler, and we're looking at the new gear from Orange, which is the OV4, is that right?
We got the OV4 self kit, and it's a self-install kit. What's great about this is it basically takes the pre-existing kit that you used to have to take the unit to a tech to install.
Right.
It's great to take it to a tech because a tech quite often knows exactly what bias points things should be at, so as they go to set the unit up, they can do that. But the challenge is that if you go to a really good amp tech, you might be waiting a minute to get your amp back. Like, great stories, like every time you go to the amp tech, there's like 30 amps there.
Yeah.
And the next time you go back, the same 30 amps are there. It's just kind of one of those things.
Yeah.
So in any case, so what's great about this unit is it's basically a self-fit kit. And it means that guitar players like you, me, you guys, can install it, and right out of the box, you don't have to use any of the computer software, which is now both Mac and PC compliant. There is what basically the interface of the software looks like. And on this little pull-down menu over here, you can actually see the different types of tube selections. And what's kind of cool about that is straight out of the box, you don't have to use the bias runner software, but what's neat is on the side of the unit, you actually have a little, basically, you've got a bias selection. You've either got the standard or the custom bias. And what that means is right out of the box, it's everything is biased at 35 milliamps.
Okay.
But then you can go ahead and create custom bias points, which means if you want to, for example, put some V6s, which generally you want to bias no hotter than 30 milliamps.
Yep.
You can create custom bias points, and kind of as you swap those out, you just toggle that.
Right.
And it also means that if you, for example, there are some guys that like to bias things at 37.5 milliamps, just a little bit hotter, and it enables you to be able to do that.
Okay, cool.
Cool. So what we've got that we're actually most excited about, brand new. This little guy is a VT1000 tube tester.
So was this your big announcement you made earlier
This
today?
is the big announcement,
Yep,
the
okay.
massive announcement. And what it enables you to do, like the OV4, you don't need to know anything other than how to hook it up and to start using it. Okay, so that is to say, I got a pair of EL34s. So I just stick them in here, you go like that. It's obviously not powered up. You select the power button, and then you just toggle through this list until you get to the right type of tube. EL34's over there. And then you hit start on it. EL34 takes about 3 or 4 minutes. And what's neat is it's going to go through a series of tests, and these two tubes tested as a 9. And what's really neat is these are a pair of Ruby tubes that I pulled out of a Rocker Verb 100.
Okay.
And they came out of, I think, the middle 2 sockets. So basically, when these tubes were manufactured and they came from Ruby, they would have been matched. And when they were actually put in the amp, they would have been again tested for whether they matched or not.
Yep.
What's great is after a fair amount of abuse, they're still perfectly matched. And that, the neat thing is that you're able to go ahead and test your tubes. Because honestly, one of the things, if you're not using something like the OV4, you want to monitor what's happening with your power amp tubes.
Yeah.
There's a video that we've got that actually shows a power amp tube having a meltdown. It's great. I don't know if we got the equivalent of the 4th of July, but it's kind of like this tube kind of arcing and going across the unit here. And it's very interesting to look at unless it's your amplifier, and then you're not very happy at all. Because basically at that point, and we never try and go, it could be catastrophic if you don't use it. The reality is when a tube actually fails like that, it's going to potentially fry your output transformer.
Yeah.
And that can get really expensive very quickly. And again, then you're waiting to get your amp back.
Okay, so when's this available?
This will be available. It'll ship in about 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
It is $4.99 US, approximately 370 something pounds. Sorry, my conversion's not that good.
It's all right.
Ballpark. Now, the best part of it is, though, this is the best part. The very best part, actually. So we got all this crazy stuff we've set up here. Why? What's the point, right? We've got all these pedals. We know we love pedals. All right, this is the 30th anniversary Tube Screamer. I've got literally every Tube Screamer in the Tube Screamer history. The reason these pedals were developed was you would walk into a music store 30 years ago, and you weren't able to buy an amplifier with a cascading gain stage that created the type of distortion that this guy made, or get that type of drive without turning an amp much louder than you could ever get away with in a music store, and arguably most of us would ever want to use on stage and still have a band. You'd be great as a solo act because nobody would want to play with you, but the point being is power amp distortion is the most beautiful sound on a giant stage.
Yeah.
But in a small room, it's too loud for a guitar player, which is why attenuators are popular.
Yeah.
I have a couple of attenuators, nothing wrong with them. But the thing is that to get an amp to the point where you get that gorgeous power amp driven overdrive, it's super loud, which is one of the reasons we built the Tiny Terror, because then you can do it at 15 or 7 watts. And the whole point is on that amp, just a slight diversion, is you're able to manipulate, again, the preamp distortion or the power amp overdrive and mix the two. That's the whole point about that circuit. You can do it at a reasonable volume. So 30 years ago, players would walk into a music store and there's a twin reverb, for example.
Yeah.
Great amp. What does a twin reverb sound like for other than really, 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 really deafeningly loud? Sounds really clean.
Yeah.
So you can't actually play that thing into the point of power amp overdrive until it's just deafeningly loud. So players started using pedals for a really logical reason. But what they were really using pedals to do was imitate the sound of what's actually happening naturally in a tube amplifier.
Yeah,
so this is where it gets crazy.
Right.
So here is the Eve pedal. So this is the original Japanese. It's actually not a silver screw for any of you geeks out there, but this is kind of the original op amp, the Japanese version, okay? Versus the Chinese version that's going to have this silver bottom here, right? Okay, and then we figured, well, no, let's and I own all these pedals, so don't get me wrong. I'm not only a member, I'm the owner of these pedals, right? I guess you guys don't have the hair clip for men in the UK. The point being is that this is a Keeley pedal where basically what he did was he took the new pedal to make it sound like the old pedal, which is really trying to sound like a tube amp. Okay, I understand how we got here, but now we can actually take a moment and go, wait a second. We've got all these great amps, and 30 years ago you couldn't walk into a store and buy a Mesa Boogie NAMM. You could only buy them directly from Boogie. So the point being is that you actually couldn't get that type of depth in the marketplace of cascading gain stages, so which is why this made so much sense.
Yeah.
But now, fast forward to today, this unit, the beauty of this unit is, and this is where it gets real world, and I'm really glad we've got a little extra time. I hope you guys don't think I'm completely out of my mind, but I am madly passionate about pedals. I'm madly passionate about gear. The great thing is that with this unit and what I'm about to kind of share with you, at least is my experience with it, what it's going to give you a sense is the things that we do with our pedals, we can do with the tubes, and you can still do the things that you do with your pedals. So here's the deal. This is what's so cool about it. If you take a look, you can actually see that I've written on the side of this tube here. Got a little 7 that I wrote on there with a Sharpie. And this is a groove tube. This is a 7/8, and that's an Electro-Harmonix. And then the Muller tested as, got to hold it right, wait, wrong Muller. There we go, and this is an 8/9. What it basically means is when you stick the tube inside the appropriate socket on the tube tester, it's going to test both sides of the tube inside the tube envelope. And for example, if it was an 8/9, means the left-hand side is an 8, and the right-hand side is a 9. Basically, the 9 would be solid and the 8 would be blinking, so you know the left and the right and what the measurement is. Those are very close to being balanced, so that tube is just fine. So the thing about this is, all of these 3 tubes are well balanced, but basically they're the equivalent of going back to the original Eve pedal, which was imitating this.
Yeah.
So basically this box allows us to, instead of going to here to get to this thing, it's basically going, okay, well there's my 7, so that's basically, say that is, hold on, that's 7. All right, then this guy is, there's our 7/8, and there's our 8/9. Except for one key distinction. Distortion pedals, as much as we love them, are very one-dimensional. They don't have the depth and responsiveness to touch that when you lighten up, some pedals are responsive, but not in the way that a tube is going to respond to the dynamics of your right hand or your fingers or your pick. And to further exemplify that, actually even better, I spent a lot of time in the studio. And I actually use all these different picks because when I'm playing stuff, a microphone hears things in ways that your human ear doesn't, because it's so close it picks up on the transients. So the thing about a tube that's really beautiful in a circuit is there's a lot of natural compression. The very thing that people use this pedal for, the tube does, but better. And there's nothing wrong with those pedals. I own them. I love them. They're great, especially if you got to go someplace where an amp is backlines.
Yeah.
You can bring your pedals, you're going to get a consistent result from the pedals, and then what happens at the amp, it's kind of whatever. And this is the best part of the story. And this is before caffeine, by the way.
Yeah, this is crazy. Definitely the craziest man we've spoken to today.
Woo! So the neat thing about this unit is that you're able to really test your preamp tubes. You're able to test your power amp tubes, and you're able to establish, basically with power amp tubes, I actually need to clarify this. The further along in the scale here, you're getting into what we refer to as late distortion.
Yeah.
And so early distortion means the tube's going to distort earlier. Hey, average and then late distortion. So basically in terms of being able to rate your preamp tubes and then being able to rate your power amp tubes and make sure that you're matching them, you're now able to effectively dial in on a tube level, tubular dude, what we have been trying to dial with distortion and overdrive pedals, now we can actually do it inside the amplifier. And that gives us a level of control that the same way we swap pedals on our pedal board, that allows us to do this. Now, kind of the last point before you guys go, but wait, there's more. You guys have that in infomercials in the UK?
Yeah.
But wait, so the deal with this is being able to measure your tubes in the factory means that you can sort all your tubes for very specific socket positions for exacting values. So generally speaking, when you buy tubes in retail, they're basically available more or less in power amp tubes, especially in 3 grades. Basically early distortion, average, and late. And then some places will subdivide that by a scale of 1 to 10. Ours goes to 15. So the point being is that as you're measuring that gives you a lot of specificity by which you're going to be able to pick an exact measurement for your tube.
Okay.
And you know, the other thing about these tubes, sorry, I'm bouncing around a little bit, in case you hadn't noticed. You know what, I purposely picked 3 different brands of tubes. Normally, if they had the exact same rating, they would still sound different.
Okay.
Okay, so what it means is that as a player, it's just the same thing. If I put on a Tim or I put on a, you know, I have a Tim, I have 2 of them, and Timmy. Whatever the flavor of the week is on whatever web forum it is that everybody goes out and buys and has a little bit more, a little bit less gain, they're basically trying to imitate what's going on here on a tube level.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you could put 2 different pedals at the same setting. All right, I've got them both at 7, but it's really like having 2 different manufacturing points for your preamp tubes. They're going to sound different in your signal chain. So being able to kind of go, you know what, I think I like the sound of the groove tube, or honestly, I'm a little bit of a vintage fanatic, so the first thing I'm going to stick in there is the Mullard, which coincidentally is the hottest of these 3 tubes. So the point being is then you begin to go, I like this value, but I like this brand better, so let me then find the value that I like better, but in the brand that I want. But the difference is that this guy costs less than my vintage tube screamer, and at that point, then I'm just fine-tuning in the way that because you keep buying pedals, nothing against the pedal guys. I've got like 300 or 400 pedals. I don't have a problem with the pedal guys, and they do not have a problem with me. So the thing is, once you start flipping tubes, or actually it's called rolling tubes, they're cheap. And the thing is, then you can test it exactly. So on Monday you've got your country gig, so you go with less gain here.
Yeah.
On Wednesday is your metal gig, so you're like all the way over. And the thing is about that sort of a situation, say you've got your country gig, you want a little bit of more of the early distortion in your power amp section. So potentially, the great thing about the OV4 is you can swap power amp tubes on the fly. So at that point you put your 6L6s, and you go with some early distortion 6L6, but then you go for your metal gig where you want late distortion because you want to get the depth in the bottom end, so it's not, can I say farty?
You can say farty, I think that's fine, yeah.
Who wants, I can't say, you don't want the lower end of your spectrum farty, okay? No. It's bad, and so the point being is that being able to fine-tune your signal chain like that, it's actually out of the scope of what you're normally able to do with the controls on an amplifier because they're set in a certain place. Yeah. And it's out of the range of most of these pedals. And then what some of the metal guys do is they start stacking pedals, and then they put the noise gate in the signal chain so that the isn't there, and you're just kind of like, why don't we just pause for a minute? There's a lot to be said about running pedals into the front end of the amplifier, but let's actually take a look at finding the exact tube values we want and then amending it from there. And that's what this box really does, especially in combination with the OV4.
Yeah, I was going to say, so essentially you've got 2 things which in combination, not necessarily eliminating the need for pedals, but giving you much more choice over your own sound in terms of what you're putting in your amp. And it's great for tube heads. It's great for people who love going online and buying tubes and getting little bits of random gear, like the guy who's behind this camera right now, actually. So yeah, 2 cool products when they're used together. I think that sounds like a wrap up.
Thank you so much. Cheers. Really appreciate
All
it.
right. Well, cheers for watching at home, guys. Thank you very much.